All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to our Thor: The Dark World recap podcast.
Fucking hell.
Why are you guys laughing, dude? Why are you guys laughing? What's going on?
I saw
I
that
mean,
movie once in theaters.
it's a hilarious movie. Is that why you guys are laughing, or
Exactly, you got it.
okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, for real, this is our Thor: Love and Thunder podcast. Um, yeah, we got Alec Bobko, we got Jordan D, and we got some other Josh.
Howdy.
Josh, does this movie hold up better than Thor: The Dark World?
Ooh. For me, this was a pretty mid-tier movie. Thor: Dark World, pretty low-tier movie. So, you know, they're like right about here, and then like Ragnarok would be like way up here. Love and Thunder, Dark World down here.
Okay, Jordan, initial impressions of Thor: Love and Thunder.
Uh, I'm with Josh. I think it's pretty mid. I don't hate it as much as some people on Twitter are making out to be. How it's like the worst thing that's ever been made. Um, Honestly, a lot of my complaints come with stuff that happened at the end. And when I also found out that this was going to be one of the shorter Marvel movies, I was worried because listen, I know people are like, "Hey, movies don't need to be as long as they've been." But when I thought about everything that this movie had to touch on compared to like where we left Thor at the end of Endgame and everything else we knew about this movie, I feel like a lot like this movie could have used another half hour to 45 minutes personally. But in general, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I had the same thought of the runtime when I saw it was like an hour and 58, including credits. I was like, I for Marvel movies and for like big event movies, I like them to be like as long as possible or like 2.5 hours or something like that, just because these movies have so much story to tell, and like I would rather them have like fluff than not enough content to fully flesh out. Like there's so many different plot elements, and
Yeah.
even like and what they add to this movie too with like the Jane stuff and everything. Like this movie had a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
Um, Alec, what did you think of this movie, man? Did this movie make you cry or laugh more than when Loki died in Thor: The Dark World?
Neither, I guess.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So I actually really enjoyed this movie. You know, Ragnarok is one in my top 3 MCU movies, and it's honestly one of my favorite movies of all time. And so this one had a pretty high bar, but it didn't quite get to the highs of Ragnarok. But I still absolutely love this movie, and I actually saw it a second time today as we're recording, and the beginning was a bit slower the second time around, but man, that second half just hits way harder the second time. I personally liked it even more. And yeah, I absolutely love this movie. Taika, he might be like as good as he did in Ragnarok in this. He might have needed to be reined in just a smidge here. I feel like he may have gone a little too far in some spots.
I think it's a lot like, and I put Guardians 1 and 2 like in my personal rankings roughly equal, and I think that there are some aspects of Guardians 2 I like more than Guardians 1. But I think that the negatives of Guardians 1 is what happened with this, where it's like they found stuff that worked specifically with humor and went too far with it at certain points. But it being too funny at points is not even like the first complaint I have about this movie. But when you say Taka needed to be reeled in a bit, that's kind of the vibe I got. It reminds me of like the weaker points of Guardians 2.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's interesting you brought that up, Alec, because Taika for Ragnarok did not like write the script. He just directed, whereas this one he did have a hand in writing the script. So that kind of echoes, the sentiments you just had of how it felt a little too Taika-y.
Although the goats were great throughout. I
Yeah,
laughed every single time.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was afraid the goats were going to be overkill as like a bit, but I think that they were actually used pretty well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's start at the beginning. The movie starts off with from like Gore's perspective. What did we think about Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher, in terms of his acting performance, but just the Gore character and how he functioned in this movie? Josh, I'll start with you.
I liked him quite a bit. I like his motivation in terms of his daughter dying, and like when he goes up to that first god and he's like, "I've given you everything," and the god's literally just laughing in his face, and he's like, rips off the necklace he's wearing of the god, and he's like, I renounce you." I thought that was incredible, and the sword then calling to him, I thought was great. And so he started off strong, and even when he shows up in the second fight and later on, but then there's some moments where he's a little too like Pennywise from It, I think, in terms of like scaring the children and stuff like that. And so I thought like tonally he's a little all over the place, but his motivation was I think really well presented.
Yeah, Jordan, what do you think, man? Do you think he could have beaten the Dark Elves in Thor: The Dark World?
Oh, I think he would have easily done it without breaking a sweat. In terms of
Okay.
his motivation, I liked him. What me and my friend were saying coming out of the movies that not only did I like the motivation, it felt so real. Like I have a friend of mine that like grew up in the church, and like with a very devout family, whose father like passed away, fairly young, and as the kid was growing up, and said that after that, at some point, he had become an atheist at the time. And I think that it's just very real to see how people can lose their faith. Of course, here, like the gods are people that you can eventually reach and are you have like I guess definitive proof they exist. You could talk directly to them, but like it's very very easy to see how somebody going through that with a parent, let alone a child, can end up losing their faith when they see that the god doesn't actually care for them. So his motivation I liked. I thought at the very end, just jumping a little bit, I thought it was a little bit weak to have Thor be the one that go, "Did you know that you could actually wish for your daughter back rather than wish for the gods to die?" Because I thought a really cool twist would be if that's what he ended up doing without anyone telling him.
Mm,
I think it would have made him
yeah.
a little bit stronger of a character. Um,
Hmm.
like if they didn't want him to do that, I would have just rather it been like he made an attempt and got stopped rather than Thor. I felt like Thor reminding him was really weak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I this is like we can talk about it later, but I was like, why can't Thor wish too? Like,
Yeah,
is there a
just
cool
is it
Yeah.
just a
is
one
there is
wish
there a
per visit?
cooldown? Is
Does
there a
yeah,
They
does
cooldown?
one
they
or the
literally
one
said
wish?
earlier in the movie that it was whoever reaches eternity
Oh,
first.
you're right. You're
Oh,
right.
so no, okay, that's what I was
It's
thinking.
just
Like no
it's
one
just
ever got
one
there ever. He's the only person that has ever
man,
gotten to eternity.
Because he
and he
needed the
wishes for
Bifrost.
and he just wished for okay. Okay.
Yeah, seems like a waste.
Yeah.
Um yeah, Alec, what do you
Um,
think? Oh, okay, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say no. I do think Bale's performance in anything is always great. Um,
Absolutely.
I think his performance peaked during that black and white scene where he had them all tied up.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
think it was really
Oh
good.
yeah.
I thought him scaring the kids was. I don't think it was bad. Like I'm not as against it as Josh is, but like I could see it why you'd be like, oh, it's a little silly. But I thought we were gonna get way darker and he was gonna like decapitate a kid. I was like, they're not gonna show this, but like, are they gonna apply this at any point? Um, but I also think that like him just freaking them out in a way adds a little bit of humanity to his character because like he knows what it's like to lose a child. I think that's why he kidnapped them, but to go as far as murdering them, like while I had that like inkling for a second, I knew that like they wouldn't go ahead and do that. Uh I just, I wouldn't have mind if they made him look even more creepier. Like it kind of the whole time it did just kind of look like really pale Christian Bale.
There were a few scenes like when he was in like blackness, like where his like it
The
looked
eyes
like
were
more
glowing.
more like ghostly or like skull-like
Yeah.
features. That's when it
Yeah.
looked really, really
And I
creepy.
saw they didn't want to do the whole serpent nose thing because they were afraid he'd look like Voldemort.
Yeah.
That's valid.
Um, yeah, Alec, what'd you think about Christian Bale, man? Did he work for you?
Yeah, his performance was awesome, I thought. And to me, I didn't mind that part where he was like, telling the story like, with the kids and all that. But to me, I got like almost like Batman animated series, like Joker vibes from that.
Mhm.
Um, but the rest of his performance, like I thought was really great. The one thing I was a little that kind of threw me off a little bit, like that really deep voice he got, like when he first got the Necro Sword. It's like he never used that voice again the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
That might have been the sword talking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I want to say shout out to the audio design when they first get to the Shadow Realm on that moon, because like I don't know if you notice when they enter that tent, everything is just muffled, just like ever so slightly,
Yeah.
and it was just really cool like hearing that, and it's like you just get the little hints of color whenever like when Jane uses Mjolnir as like a light or a light source, you can see it like Mjolnir light up, and like her cape is a hint of red there. But yeah, I loved his performance, and he's not quite an S tier villain, but I think he's still up there. I'll say maybe like lower A, kind of B-ish tier. Nothing.
Like
Yeah.
I feel like if you just look at single movie villains, he's definitely up there. You know, when you take out people that have had multi-movie arcs or appearances.
Yeah. Yeah, Darren Cross, probably not as compelling as
Yeah.
why is everyone laughing, man? Darren Cross. Incredible character.
I don't know why.
Um,
I feel like my first instinct was going to be bringing up like Obadiah Stane, and for some reason you brought up Darren Cross. You're like, who isn't a bad villain? Cross isn't a bad villain, but it's just funny.
he's not bad. He's just not memorable in my opinion. But
Yeah.
that's another discussion. So the movie after we get the beginning scene with Gore, we jump to Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, obviously, we know they were kind of hanging out together after the end of Endgame. What did we think about the Guardians and their role in this movie? And where do you think they're going to go next? Alec, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I thought having the Guardians like at the beginning of this was really cool. You see that they basically like Thor is basically their secret weapon in a way. Um, and it was just cool seeing them like still having the interactions, the chemistry between that team grow stronger even after Endgame. And man, that scene that they showed a million times in the trailer of Star Lord saying, ever feel lonely, look into the eyes of the people you love, and then he just does, Thor like comes out of the fair. I laughed every time in the trailers, and it still hits in the movie.
Yeah. Jordan, would you ask Thor for help in a major conflict in your life? But you would take all the credit though.
Yeah, in a heartbeat. Thor can write my term papers. He can help me, pay off my student loans. All that. Anytime I'd use him for like the dumbest shit if I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, this table's wobbly. Thor, do something.
What do you think? What do you think, Jordan? That the Guardians? I mean, the Guardians were really only in the movie for like 5, minutes or something.
I'm
like
happy
that.
with that actually, because as the
Really?
movie was starting, and I was thinking like, okay, it's the last time we saw Thor. That's where he was, and again, that's kind of the thing of like how many things that this movie had to juggle. We know that he was with the Guardians. We know that it's going to introduce other gods as well as the concept of the God Butcher. We know it's going to have to do with the mighty Thor, and we're also going to see Thor's personal journey and all of this. I said I hope that he leaves the Guardians group to do his own thing as soon as possible. And so I actually think that was one of the better paced parts, kind of showing the dynamic they've had, but without making them there for the whole first act, because this was already kind of a cast movie in a way. I guess the only thing I change is if he circled back with them at the end, not even necessarily like rejoin them at the end, but kind of like meet up with them, catch up, be like, hey, like I'm doing my own thing now, but like, and maybe use that as like a way to just start the tiny seeds as to where they might be for Guardians 3. But even I think the way that we ended with them is like a good place to start from Guardians 3. Like if Guardians 3 starts with the scene of Thor leaving them and we take off from there, I think that would make a
Ooh.
lot of sense.
Oh yeah,
That would be cool. That would be cool. So for me, like I loved. It was so cool to see the Guardians after 3 years. So it's cool to see them. Very happy to see them. I don't know, like not that I had expectations, but I wish we would have gotten some sort of like co-movie with Thor and the Guardians, because that was such a cool dynamic in Infinity War.
If this movie had less to juggle, I would have been cool with them basically
Yeah.
making this a like a Guardians 2.5, the way like people will claim Captain America Civil War is like Avengers 2.5. But I just think that this movie had a lot to do all at once, and that them being there would have just added to stuff you have to deal with. I also think that then you would have needed a joint venture between Gunn and Takia,
Mhm.
because I think one of the good things about Infinity War was basically like, while the Russos helped write the story, when it came to the specific dialogue for characters they never worked with, they got like Takia and James Gunn and insert other directors for other characters here to like still say what they wanted them to say in the story, but in the way that their characters would. And I think that doing a full movie with that would have been interesting.
Yeah, because with Guardians 3 next year, I don't assume Thor's gonna show up in that. Because like how long were they together? Probably like a couple months or something like that. I'm assuming maybe a year, something
He
like
says
that.
it's
Like
been 8 years since Jane broke up with him, and we know Jane broke up with him. The
remember,
t-
it's like 2025 right now, so that's like that's probably like 2017ish or something like that. So
well,
that would
no, Jane
be
broke up with him before Age of Ultron, and Age of Ultron was 2015.
yeah, but it's like 2025 right now. I'm assuming
Yeah.
it's like before Ragnarok and after Age of Ultron.
Mhm.
Because
20.
I'm assuming at that point they were like on and off again with the
It's
around the age.
2020.
Well,
2015
because
plus 8 is 2023, and I think Endgame takes place in 2023.
Yes.
And this movie's like a couple months or a year or something.
Yeah,
After,
it doesn't seem like it's taking place that far after Endgame.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Josh, if Thor destroyed your sacred temple, how would you hold him accountable, or how would you let it
Man,
slide?
man, if he destroyed my sacred temple, I'd be pissed. But I'd be like, man, you should definitely hang out with the Guardians a lot more, because Guardians, great flick. Guardians is in like my top five. The first Guardians movie is in my top five Marvel films, and for them to be like out of it by like minute 10, I was a little bummed. But I was like, I spent that whole time hoping that they would like come back, or like,
Hmm.
Thor would be like, hey yo, we need
Army,
someone to like
yeah,
army. Exactly. He's building a team, and one of the gods laughed in his
Schrodinger's
face.
Guardians of the or sorry, Chekhov's Guardians of the Galaxy.
yeah.
Exactly, and it's like, even if he's like, "Yo, I need someone to just come fight black spider goo monsters and help fly these kids out of here back to Earth," like, Guardians,
Oh,
I
that
need
would have been
you.
a great way to do it. Would have been have the Guardians transport the kids.
Have
Yeah.
them bookend it, and that's kind of what I was hoping for. And so, when Ant-Man and Spider-Man leave Civil War, and you're just kind of left with just the rest of the movie. Like, that's how I felt when the Guardians were out. I was like, damn, there's like a whole lot of movie left, and my favorite characters are kind of gone. So I wish we did get more of them. And then I think, yeah, even as Jordan was mentioning, having James Gunn work with Taika to you know write out the plot, I felt like would have definitely reined in a lot of Taika's like outlandishness. And so I wish Guardians were in there a little bit more. But I do like the chemistry between Star Lord and Thor, and him being like, it sucks losing someone, but you'd
Yo,
rather
fuck Chris
go.
Pratt, but Star Lord's a good friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, I'm right there with you. Most despicable guy to play the most beloved characters, Chris Pratt.
Bro, did he read that
Uh,
interview? He's cool now, dude. Okay,
yeah,
he's cool now,
I
bro.
saw that.
He's cool
He
again.
he, he thinks religion is oppressive, and
Oppressive as
yeah,
fuck.
I guess he's cool now. But yeah, I could have gone for more Guardians, absolutely. And the humor didn't always work for me in this movie, but like all the Guardians stuff worked for me, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like like
Yeah,
Nebula just yelling at him at
I
Star
also
Lord
I
was
really
funny as
liked
shit.
I really liked in the credits how before they showed the actual actor's name, they just went featuring the Guardians of the Galaxy as if
Yeah.
those were the actual. Like we always
Yeah.
act like the Muppets are real people. Like we'll say like featuring
Yeah.
Kermit the Frog. They
Mhm.
did that for like a half second, and I was like, that's funny.
yeah,
That is, yeah.
I thought it was so funny, like them like struggling in this battle, and like that, like I was laughing when they were like struggling because I was like,
Mhm.
we know it's coming, and then like Thor gets on the scene, and then they're just like standing, they're like resting on their
Yeah.
guns and stuff, and like that cracked me up.
Mhm.
Let's transition to
Plus
the. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, plus having Korg interact more with the Guardians was incredible. Like when he's like, do the whistle, and like he says, "Now you give it a try," and he says to Mantis, and she goes, "Wah!" and just kind of screams. Like I
Yeah.
cracked the fuck up. That funniest part of the movie, dude.
I'm also thinking I wish, as happy as I am that the Guardians got out of there fast, I wish that there was something other than Thor having to do his own thing that gave us a reason to separate from them that could again remind us that like, oh, next year we're getting Guardians 3.
Yeah, like
Or
they totally left like on a clean break. Like we really don't know what
Yeah, like
they're gonna
Guardians 3
do
could pick up at any
at any
point as long
point.
as they just go, oh, it's after
Mhm.
Thor left them, and it would make
Answering
100%
all those
sense.
distress calls.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I was gonna say one of those distress calls could have like we could have seen Gamora, and they're like, "Oh shit, we gotta go to Gamora," and Thor's like, "Oh shit, we gotta go help whatever
Lady
that lady's
Sif.
name, Lady
Lady
Sif."
Steph.
Yeah, yeah.
Um yeah, so let's jump to the next
I'll say real quick.
oh yeah, my bad.
The moment when Thor like takes off the cloak and powers up, and you get the opening riff to "Welcome to the Jungle." Come on,
Yes.
come
Yeah.
on.
It's hot. It's hot. It's no immigrant song, but it was
See,
hot, dude.
for me, I grew up a big like classic rock fan, and Guns N' Roses was one of my favorite bands growing up. And having so much Guns N' Roses in this movie, I absolutely loved it. And so having
Absolutely.
this in there was awesome.
Yeah.
And I I made the joke to my friend that we went and saw this. I went and saw this with. It's like Thor: Love and Thunder, aka Thor: Appetite for Destruction, because it's basically that entire album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually I'll pivot here. So with this being Taika's second Thor movie, he kind of uses a lot of the same, I don't want to say tricks, but like same beats that he did in Ragnarok in terms of, yeah, he used like the immigrant song and Led Zeppelin and Ragnarok, and now doing Guns N' Roses. They have the play kind of bit again, all that
I
stuff.
love that.
Play bit was
Yeah.
was great, was a great callback because it doesn't seem to me. I like the idea of like, oh, new Asgard, because it's such a new country and the people see the Asgardians as being these, I mean, literally at one point worshipped as gods. It makes sense that they would just fall back on like a tourism amusement park type of thing in
Mhm.
order to keep
Uh-huh.
their country, running and provide for the economy. I mean, I think that doing like those little shows, like when you go to Disney and you see like a quick reenactment of like Aladdin, makes a lot of sense.
It was
And they
funny, and I
got Matt
love that it
Damon.
was.
They got
Yeah,
Matt
I love.
Damon back. It's also Luke Hemsworth. For some reason, when he was dressed as Thor, me and my friend thought it was Chris Pine.
Mhm. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
love that they're also retelling Ragnarok. And dude, when Melissa McCarthy shows up as
Oh,
Right?
that was good.
like,
I
I
didn't realize
popped
it was
off.
her.
I was laughing so fucking hard,
You didn't realize
dude.
it was Melissa
Like,
McCarthy?
yeah.
Oh, I realized right
Dude,
away.
it's Melissa McCarthy. She's like one of the most just like recognizable actresses.
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
that was great.
I was cracking up, dude.
But yeah, so the performance or like the whole like, oh, we're doing stage shows of the last Thor movie is funny to me. I don't The callbacks or like trying to repeat what he did before with the music.
Mhm.
I don't feel like I think what worked best with Immigrant Song is Immigrant Song is literally about Norse mythology. And I
Mhm.
would have preferred them keep that as his theme song than just go to a different classic rock
Absolutely.
band. Especially because like that was already kind of Tony's thing, and you see that they're never reusing AC/DC with a character that isn't Tony, except for one scene in Spider-Man where they're making a parallel to the two.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it worked, but it did feel like diminishing returns, if that
Right.
makes sense. Like the play was like, oh, okay, yeah, they're doing the same thing.
Doing this. Yeah.
Funny, but not as funny as the first time, obviously, when you see like Matt
Yep.
Damon in Ragnarok. That was like,
Yeah.
what? Like,
It's also one of those things where like in Ragnarok, that scene goes on for what, 10 seconds?
hmm
yeah, it's pretty
Versus like
short.
This one was
like
like a
here,
2-minute bit.
but even then though they bring this bit back when they're like in distress that the kids are gone,
Yes.
and Matt Damon, they're
Yes.
playing the
See, that worked.
insufferable theater kids.
That really worked for me because I was like, oh,
Yep.
like
Same.
these idiots are so concerned about making another play. Which, by the way, one thing that I had an issue with this movie is I couldn't tell in the new Asgard scenes like who was Asgardian and who wasn't.
Yeah.
Like everybody looks the same,
Yeah.
and so like
Except for the random other aliens that were there. Like you had the
The
one
random wolf
Thundercat
kid.
looking kid, and then the one
Yeah.
golden kid from Guardians 2.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Um. Oh yeah. So okay. So let's jump over to the next topic. So this is the return of Dr. Jane Foster after um she was in Endgame, I guess, a bit, right? But not really.
Like for like 2
She
seconds.
walked through a door in Endgame. Not a bit, bro. We saw her from the back and she walked through a
But yeah,
door.
like
That was
that
it.
definitely wasn't Natalie Portman.
Um.
Yes, that was that was the back of some random woman.
Like remember how at
So
the end of Thor 2 she couldn't make the reshoots for the kissing, so he was kissing his actual wife.
life, yeah.
Right.
They probably just found like some PA or intern that had similar hair to Natalie Portman, and they were like, put on this toga and walk.
Yeah. It's Chris Hemsworth's wife again, just walking through a doorway this time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's her first appearance, like real appearance since hit film Thor: The Dark World.
Mhm.
How did we feel about seeing her back on screen? How do we feel about the cancer plot, which is obviously taking inspiration from the comics? And then
Mhm.
how did we feel about her as Mighty Thor? Um, J- Jordan, do you think Mighty Thor could beat the Dark Elves faster than regular Thor?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I think that they'd have the exact same time because it's Mjolnir doing all the work. But I guess here's where my hot take of the movie comes in. Killing Jane off at the end ruined the entire movie for me, and I feel was almost a slightly shitty move on Marvel's part. Now, I'm not saying that Marvel did this as a way to like bait people and be like, "Hey, look, we're gonna be inclusive," and then screw it all up and kill her at the end, because I think in the last few years, Marvel very much has put their money where their mouth is with having Sam Wilson take on Captain America. We have Miss Marvel airing right now, which is about a female Pakistani Muslim superhero. We've had the introduction of Kate Bishop. So I'm not saying that they're faking this move towards having a more diverse set of characters. But the whole marketing hinged on, we are now introducing the mighty Thor, and we are seeing, I said this to a friend earlier. The whole Infinity Saga is a bunch of straight white men, but to the MCU's defense, most of the original characters in Marvel were only just straight white men. And as time went on, we started getting a more diverse set of comic characters, a lot of which were variations of characters we already had. So I thought, like, oh, maybe Mighty Thor is going to be the new mainstream Thor, or they'll work side by side. Now, I'm assuming that the thing was that Natalie Portman didn't want to sign on for multiple movies. That's the reason they wrote the characters to break up in the first place, was because she didn't really like playing Jane Foster. She didn't think she was a strong character. In my
It was the
opinion, if
Patty Jenkins thing from
Yeah, that
Dark
was
World,
it.
wasn't it?
Mhm.
Yep.
was
They
it
like
okay, yeah,
fucked over Patty Jenkins, and she was like,
yeah.
"Fuck you guys,
So in
I'm
my
done."
opinion, if Natalie Portman was like, I only want to come back for one movie, I would have just been like, never mind. Let's not even introduce Jane Foster's Mighty Thor, because
Mm.
it feels like such a tease, only for us to really end back up where we were, where Th- we only have one Thor, and it's the version we've always had. If they couldn't, I just think that if you guys weren't able to get her to be the Mighty Thor for multiple projects, you should have just done a movie focusing on Thor's journey and just kind of moved on from Jane. I'm sure there's other love interests you could have given him. That's kind of where my hot take is, because like it just feels so unfair to be like, we're bringing her, no, we're not.
Yeah, I wish we got more of her, but at the same time, I'm glad we got her at all, if
It
that
was
makes
nice
sense.
seeing her again, but I feel like again, it's just such an
I
unfair tease.
I thought it was super cool to see her, obviously with the powers of Thor, kick ass, but because she's new to that role, she's not as like savvy as Thor is, obviously. So it was cool to see that difference in like the two characters, even though they have the same
Yeah, and,
powers.
and I think seeing her get excited over it was cool. I think it's also an interesting take that they were actually saying that Mjolnir was making it harder for her to fight the cancer, because in the comics, Mjolnir it keeps it as at bay is usually the term they use, where it's kind of like Deadpool's healing, where like the cancer isn't leaving, but if you're to ever lose this, it's back where you were before. So you're keeping it exactly where you are. It's not getting worse or better.
Yeah. Alec, what did you think about Jane in this movie?
I absolutely loved her in this movie. I understand where Jordan's coming from, but at the same time, I think taking inspiration, doing a 1-to-1 with the comics and just having them keep the cancer at bay. Like, I feel like having it make take her moral strength, take it away from fighting the cancer, made it more an emotional impact on Thor. So that way he was able to learn the lesson that Star Lord, of all people, taught him at the beginning of the movie, where it's better to have loved something and lost it rather than to feel nothing at all. So it opened up his, and like that, or at the ending when she actually ended up dying, like that little parting, where her parting words are like, never, or keep that heart open, or something along those lines, like, and basically gave him that strength to love this child that's not his, and that was his enemy. And
Technically.
What?
It's played by his daughter in real life.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I found that out when
Yeah.
I was googling the character afterwards. So it's like technically, I mean, it is his.
Yeah, but in MCU canon.
Yeah, no, I know, I'm teasing.
Yep. But yeah, I thought that she was used really well. The sound effects of all the pieces of Mjolnir, like after they come out and they like come back to like reunite, is so satisfying.
Oh no, that was a really cool thing of like the way to like give the fact that Mjolnir was broken at one point, make it like an extra power is super cool. And it reminded me of like I heard once, I guess, that there's like this banned form of like Jedi combat, or both Jedi and Sith, where that use the ability of the lightsaber to turn on and off to its advantage in combat, and that kind of felt like what this was.
Mhm.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, like a cheap
Josh,
shot in the best ways.
Josh,
Yes.
what do you think of Jane, and how fucking awesome was Mjolnir in this movie?
Dude, Jane was awesome. Mjolnir was fucking awesome. Like we said, the like AOE attacks she's doing incredible. I love how excited she is to be Thor. I do like that as kind of a one and done with her, because a lot of these movies post Endgame has just been kind of like passing the torch of like, all right, well, Steve Rogers is gone. Now let's get the next Cap. Jeremy Renner's kind of a piece of shit. Let's get in Kate Bishop. Like, let's funnel in these new characters. And so for her to die at the end, like, I was actually genuinely surprised, um, because she's not signing a 7-movie contract to continuously come back. And so I thought that was like kind of a refreshing after all these passing of the torch bits. And then yeah, she was absolutely incredible, and I thought that also gave like a lot of stakes, like personal stakes to Thor, right? Versus like, this isn't some world-ending threat. Like, if the gods all die, like no one's really gonna know. Like, shit, there was a time period where like Thor's gone from Earth and people just like don't ever ask questions about him. So even if Thor died in this movie, like people wouldn't really know all the gods died. So like the stakes aren't so much on the gods, but it's on what Thor has to lose, and Thor has Jane to lose. And like when they're having the like conversation, and she's like on the like cancer bed, and he's like, I don't want you to do it, and she's like, who are you to tell me that? And like just all of that, like, tugged at the heartstrings and just like ramped up those personal stakes even more. And dude, the emotion on Chris Hemsworth's face, like during the final battle when she shows up and he's like, no, like I can't believe you're here, and you're like doing this, you're like sacrificing yourself for this all. Like, it just, you can tell he's like heartbroken.
For a second, I thought she was just gonna send Mjolnir to him.
That's what I thought too.
Oh, and like die right there.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, but
now she would still be in the bed, like getting the elixirs and potions and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
She was just like, go to
Yeah.
him, basically.
Also,
go help him.
I'm pretty sure she was just getting chemo. He called it elixirs and potions as a joke. Or do you think it was
Yeah.
actually Asgardian stuff?
I mean,
No,
I think it's just chemo.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's my Reddit.
you never
read on
know,
it, but
because
yeah.
she did that doctor did say that like normal procedures weren't going to do anything, so it could be some sort of magic, advanced
Yeah.
medicine
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, but she's, she was awesome. I like that she's in Valhalla with Heimdall. That was incredible. And so that like there's a possibility we like Thor 7 down the line. We could see her once
Yeah,
again as
That's what I was
the
wondering
Force
is
Ghost.
if you've
is
ever
there
played,
just because I wonder like we finally seen Valhalla now and Heimdall's there and it seems nice and peaceful. But they've never given us an indication that anybody can come back to Valhalla or come back from Valhalla.
all
So
I
like
know
it
is,
feels like that's not really a tease as much as it is just to be like, hey, we had Idris Elba for a weekend.
see, all
No,
I know
that's
is you play Skyrim, you go into Valhalla, you kill the dragon, you get out. There's a place you can get into it and you can get out if you really want to try, right? That's
But
why I,
can you only be living to enter and exit again?
um,
I don't know what the lore is.
I don't
I
know
mean,
that
I
lore
mean,
either.
in this kind of world, I feel like there's like some way.
There's
There's
probably also some scientific explanation about how like it's
a
a dimension that
breach.
exists within our world and that you could technically use
Even,
science to access it.
I mean, even in Moon Knight, right? When um Steven and what's his face die, like they come back, right? Like
Yo, I kind of
Mark.
feel like I understand that people don't want the MCU to just be reference after reference or crossover after crossover, but I also feel like a way to give like the MCU shows more like little pout. It would have been cool to see Khonshu in that in the Olympiad city or Omnipotent city.
Bro,
Oh yeah.
he was the fringe guy in his own god circle. No way he's going to Omnipotent City, dude.
Yeah.
Or yeah, but I don't
Or
know. Like, I'm not
the
even saying that like
hippo.
this like Moon Knight should have made a full blown appearance, but like if they had mentioned the Egyptians gods or and had them basically been like, we'd like to help with gore, but we're dealing with some shit of our own.
Like
Yeah.
that whoever that hippo was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just
Um
saying, like they had the time to make a god of dumplings. They could have had time to throw in an Egyptian god.
yeah, so like, next in the movie they go to Omnipotent City to raise an army. So we get to see Russell Crowe as Zeus. We get to see a whole
Great
bunch of
casting.
different gods and references. What did we think about Omnipotent City? What did we think about Russell Crowe as Zeus with what kind of accent was he doing there?
I'm assuming it was a Greek accent, and
Yeah.
it took me a second to realize that because I've realized they've never given Greek gods Greek accents.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
But like, I'm not saying this in a mean way. It's not the most powerful or intimidating of accents.
Mhm.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I like going there. I feel like for every like 2 or 3 shots of this or like locations of this that are absolutely gorgeous, there's like one that it just looks horrendous. And this was definitely one of the better looking parts of the movie. And then yeah, all the comedy stuff in terms of like the orgies, incredible. Him like throwing the thunderbolt through Zeus, awesome. Like all this stuff was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
I
is
also
now this
think
is
that.
gonna be
Oh,
I
go
was
ahead,
gonna say
Alex.
this might be my hot take for the movie. Best fight scene was this one here.
Really?
I mean, come
I
on,
really enjoyed this one.
The middle section when they're on the moon.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
black and white
the
section
moon's
to me is
mine.
just too
I
good.
Yeah.
mean, that's a best looking. Yes. But
Mhm.
best fight scene was this one.
There's just the action.
Yeah. Because you got like the gold spraying everywhere. You have that one part where like Valkyrie's just standing there, like she stabs 3 of them
Yeah.
at the same time, and just gold raining everywhere.
Valkyrie and Jane basically being like, nope, nope, don't flick it. We'll take it off ourselves before we're
Yeah.
suddenly naked. I saw this as a matinee. I saw this like 4 hours ago now. And it wasn't a packed theater, but most of the people in my theater clapped and cheered when we saw Hemsworth's ass.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
I could only imagine if I was in town for a midnight showing, how much people would have went off to see those beautiful godly cheeks.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Jordan, what would you rate Hemsworth's ass?
Oh, it's actually under a 1, bro. It's just 2 beautiful zeros right there.
Nice.
Shiny, glistening zeros.
Nice. Um uh okay, yeah, so they do not get an army, and I mean everyone thought we'll get to it at the end, but like everyone thought Zeus died there, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
not
thought-
only did I think Zeus fully died, I saw like a complaint on Twitter. Somebody was like, Thor kills more gods than Gore the God Butcher in this movie. And I was like,
Oh
And
yeah, let's talk
and
about
I
that
was
right now.
and I was
Gore
like,
the God
technically,
Butcher kills one god in this entire
we
movie.
see him kill one god, but like they
Oh
say
yeah,
that he's
yeah, yeah,
killed
yeah.
multiple more. But I guess people are like, oh, Thor killed Zeus, and we saw the cold open with Gore killing the first one. I guess Thor ends up killing more. Technically, Thor didn't kill any.
Oh, we see Sith like laying next to the like dead
Sid.
the body of a like laying next to the body of a dead god, but yeah, I thought he was like gone there, but that's kind of my biggest complaint of this movie is like they keep edging these character deaths, but then being like, "Hey yo, psych!" Like when Korg went down, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm still down here," and it's just his
So there was
face. Like I
something
thought that was
about the
funny.
like. I feel like it's always easy to tell whether or not a character's really dead based on like how the scene continues. Korg, like the second shit kept going, I was like, Korg's not dead, is he? I really thought they killed Valkyrie off, and I think it was weird to have
Same.
three fake out deaths. Of those three, I
Yes.
don't know what would the best death would have been. Um, I think for maybe like
I think the most impactful would have been Valkyrie, but I'm glad they didn't kill her
I
off.
think Valkyrie would
Yep.
have been very impactful, but I also think killing off Lady Sith maybe wouldn't have been as impactful to the audience, but would have been very impactful to Thor dealing with this idea of like every time I love somebody, they leave, because at one point Lady Sif was his love interest.
Yeah, remember in hit movie Thor: The Dark World when Odin tells Thor to ditch Jane and shack up with Sif?
Get a real woman. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
that was a
I gotta
powerful
say,
scene. I was in tears in that scene, honestly.
shout out to the scene where Sif realizes he's not gonna go to Valhalla.
He's like,
Yeah.
shit.
You have to die in battle, not lay around till after
Her
the
arms in
That
Valhalla
does
though.
seem a little bit unfair that if you get stabbed and the battle's over, like what's the time limit? Is it 5 minutes post battle? Like what defines the end of the battle, and how long do you have to die after for them to be like you're not allowed in Valhalla?
Yeah,
when there's no more fighting.
there's some gray area of like when Jane dies, she goes into gold dust. Odin does it in Ragnarok, but like Heimdall didn't go turn into gold dust in Infinity War, but he was in Valhalla. I think it's just, I mean, it's just little
Interesting.
inconsistencies like that. Um, and
Maybe
and we could argue Thor doesn't even really know how Valhalla works. It's kind of that a
right.
thing of like you don't know
Right.
until you die and then you go or you don't go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was gonna say with the Infinity War thing, I think because he beams him out of the ship, and that's
We
the
don't
last time we
see
see
it.
him.
Yeah.
We don't see
We
like
we
they
didn't
could have
true.
see
made
him
what we
take
would
his
seen.
last breath. We see like the last three.
sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, the next part of the movie is they travel to the Shadow Realm. And but
Yu-Gi-Oh
before
shout out.
but before we get there, I just want to highlight the heart to heart that Thor and Jane have on the boat. I thought that was a
Incredible.
very emotional, powerful scene. That and the flashback of their relationship, I think was like the most compelling part of the relationship that we've seen in any Thor movie.
It was interesting
Up
seeing
to
that
date.
stuff that like happened, what we could assume, at points between movies, like, generally
Mm.
around the Dark World to Age of Ultron timeline. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that it started out strong, but then like it kind of keep looking like a generic rom-com, or like how you portray divorce in like a kids movie.
Mhm.
Was an interesting choice. Like I think they could have let the actual emotion behind a relationship like that ending linger a bit more than it did.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, I mean, it was in Thor 1, but yeah, just like that pivotal moment in Thor's life of like being unworthy and then Jane kind of helping him get back to that place. I was like that was
Yeah.
like really dope. Um
Also, him saying that the space dolphins mate for life reminded me of like Into the Spider-Verse when Peter B. Parker is like crying at the TV because seahorses mate for life.
That's funny. Yeah, I got some real Star Lord and Gamora vibes, like when they have their heartfelt moment in Guardians 1 on the
Yeah.
boat, just like looking over the beautiful scenery. Korg mentioning the hand holding
With the
tradition
dads,
between
yeah.
two rock men. That was hilarious to me, and yeah, I
wait,
loved all
cuz
the downtime.
didn't in Ragnarok he talked about his mom though? That was like something too.
Interesting.
He was like, my
Oh,
mom and my
Wow.
stepdad were the only people that like showed up to my anarchy
Revolution, and I
rally.
hate
Yeah,
him. And then here he's like,
My two dads.
to
Not only does
my
he
two
imply that
dads.
he had two dads,
Interesting.
it is two
they
dads.
imply that his
his
species is
stepdad.
all
Yeah.
male.
Or no, it's two
Interesting.
males that form kids, but then it could be a boy or a girl.
No, I feel
Yeah.
like he implied that they're all because he said that's how they make a baby boy.
Maybe either
Hmm.
like
And
Yeah.
and then the fact that his partner was also male, like they kind of kept implying that his species is an all male species.
hmm.
Yeah.
Also, his partner's name was Dwayne the Rock.
And had
Dwayne
a
the Rock.
dope mustache, dude. It was so hot.
Was it much? I
Yeah,
thought it was a full goatee.
that was like a Ted Lasso mustache, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And
that's what
did you
I saw
notice
was the Ted Lasso.
the chair that that species god was sitting in?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was like
scissors,
the
scissors.
Game
Yeah,
Iron
of
Rock.
Thrones
Throne.
chair. Yeah.
Yeah, Rock over
Those
scissors. When
scissors.
Rock beats.
That's
Rock
awesome.
beats. Um, yeah.
When they were going to Omnipotent City, I asked a friend, like, do you think that they have the balls to just like show Jesus in this scene?
My gosh, I was
No.
gonna. That was,
He's just pinned up on a cross, just hanging there.
he's like whipping people or something like.
God, I was just imagining a dude with long hair and a beard and just like a robe and with a red thing over it, just like
Someone's
just
like ordering
seeing in
like
the audience quickly.
someone's ordering like a Dr. Pepper and then he turns it into like something else, like some shitty like Dr. Thunder
I
or
was just gonna say
something.
just
Like,
to
Yeah.
you
Just
just
do the
see it
water into
clear and
one
then
thing.
just turn. I was just gonna say you just see a guy, yeah, like you said, with the the red sash, a white robe, and he's just holding some water, and then just just as he's walking, it just turns to wine.
yeah, so yeah, they have that Thor and Jane have that heart to heart on the ship, and then we get to the fucking Shadow Realm, which was my personal favorite part of the movie. I think the cinematography in this movie was fucking incredible. The fight scene was dope. Seeing Thor, Jane, and Valkyrie like kick ass was so cool. They use this like technique. I read about it. Taika like knew somebody in I think New Zealand that like developed this like new way to shoot film with like shooting a shot, but then having like different lights all over the place and like being able
Oh
to capture
yeah.
all of the light and then like just after you shoot it and you edit it, you can like pick which light source you want in the editing.
Huh.
And so that's
Oh,
why the
that's
lighting
cool.
was like shifting and going all crazy.
That's
Um,
cool.
what did you guys think about the cinematography of this part when they were in the Shadow Realm
I
fighting
think this was the
for?
best made scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
I
because I
agree.
think it takes a lot of balls for them to go into, because like I know a
Yes,
lot of the
this is
complaints about the MCU movies is that they tend to be too gray, but like there is a difference between they're muted versus they don't have color. And personally, I think there was something wrong with my screen in the theater because even during the trailers, the MPAA, the green seemed very muted. I feel like the brightness on that screen was acting up.
okay.
But for them to go into a place where they are literally taking out all color and you have a black and white movie going on is a ballsy decision. But then I
Yes.
think what's really cool is that then, like when Alex said before, she's using Mjolnir as a light. You realize that the color is there from a canonical perspective. The color is there. It just unless
Just
you have
overpowered.
it's just so overpowered until you have actual powerful light give you little glimpses of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing this in IMAX was like a goddamn spectacle. Like
Yep.
as Alec was saying,
Nice.
with the muffled audio, but also the big ass screen. I love the selective choice of colors. Like when Natalie Portman's walking down the hallway, like all the cracks in Mjolnir are blue, and like Gorg's eyes are yellow and stuff like that. I felt like this was definitely like some of the most inspired like cinematography settings and fights in the MCU as a whole. And so I absolutely loved all this stuff, and just what a cool way to visually portray the Shadow Realm. Because like any other like lesser director would have just been like, yeah, it's dark, you can't see shit. But that like go full black and white for 5 minutes of the movie, incredible. Chef's kiss. Shout
I
out
made the
Taika for
joke
that.
on my spoilers without context tweet, but it reminded me of a hit decom Halloween Town 2 Calabar's Revenge. You know, when Halloween Town's becoming normal and it's just all black and white draining.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because then you do that,
Oh
get those
yeah.
moments where the color comes back.
Yeah, yeah. I encourage everybody, here and watching and listening to check out like how they filmed this. Just Google like Thor: Love and Thunder, Taika Waititi, Shadow Realm cinematography, something like that. You'll probably find it. It's so cool. But yeah, Alec, your thoughts on this? I'm assuming you loved it as well.
Oh yeah. And let's not forget how this scene started with the ship just crashing into the planet.
Dude, yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
I thought it was so far away, and then it just goes.
Yeah.
Right on the goats too, and I was like, "Damn, like there goes the goats," and then the goats start screaming again, and I was
So,
like,
again,
"Oh, we're
I
still with the
think
fucking goats."
I'm happy the goats were not overused. Like I think that they were a good running gag, but they weren't obnoxious. I'm not gonna lie. When the goats first showed up, I really thought there was going to be a hard cut, and then we would to the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor sitting around a campfire with like a drumstick that like this big, like a comically sized drumstick.
Oh yeah. That
Yeah,
then
because he
just
said we
fucking
could use
ate
them for
him.
the meat, and I really just thought that it would be
Right.
like a drumstick leg as big as them, or like as big as Stormbreaker.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I would say this scene was awesome. I talked about like how I love the muffled audio and this, like the whole scene, like you saw it in the trailers, like how Gore like kind of like points the sword at Thor, and then Thor just gives the come here, bring it.
Oh, hard nipples right there, dude. Let me tell you. Oh my
Yo,
god.
I had hard nipples during this entire scene. Seeing the three of them tied up in like a little gag over their mouth, I was like, this is hot. Gore's kinky.
Yeah, there were some shots with this from the scene of like wallpapers, like the shot at the beginning
Yeah.
with Thor, Jane, and Valkyrie. I was like, just so cool. They do make the Thor made the same damn mistake again. Like they've done it so many times. Of
Go
they
for
like
that.
no, at this point they know he needs a Bifrost. Thor needs a Bifrost to get there, and then he calls a Bifrost when he dips in the shadows. Like,
Oh
bro,
yeah.
you know he's gonna come out and yank the hammer away from you, man.
I know
Or
that this would have
the
ended the
axe.
movie like 45 minutes prematurely, but when he was like, call the hammer, I was like, how cool would it be if he's like, okay, and he calls it, but it calls it through Gore and just fucking slices him.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
End the movie there. They don't even find the children. They just go back to Asgard and they're like, "Fuck,
Yeah.
they're gone."
I will
Yeah. So
say,
then oh,
because we haven't said it before, but shout out to the effects of the shadow monsters and like the shadows just growing.
yeah,
I thought that
that was
really
like
cool.
Harryhausen like kind of
That was
stuff
some
going on.
Bloodborne shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so then the movie transitions to Gore reaching eternity. What did we think about seeing eternity, which if for the folks who don't know, pretty big deal in the Marvel world. How did you guys feel about the portrayal of a pretty pivotal character in the Marvel universe, Jordan?
I'm not too familiar with Eternity as a character. I think
Same.
it was so I don't know his original comic design, but like I think it was interesting making him or making like I guess the figure that is Eternity have a slight resemblance, I'll say, to or a silhouette to Galactus. Was an interesting choice.
Oh yeah.
I thought I got some hella vibes with like the different horn.
Yeah, I see that too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, Alec, what did you think about how Eternity like really didn't say anything or do anything? It was almost like they literally kind of make a joke about it in the movie as like a wishing well. Like, did that part of the story work for you?
Okay, his helmet does look like that in the comic, so I won't say that they made it look like Galactus, but it's an interesting choice.
Hmm.
I'll say it did work for me. It's kind of the sort of end game. For Gore, like so he has a actual goal to get there, because I don't know if it was Eternity talking to him to get him to like go there and get the Bifrost and all that, or if it was the sword. But
It was a sword, I think.
okay, but it was just cool that he has like actually had that goal, and he actually achieves it too. Not many like MCU villains actually achieve like their overall goal.
Yeah, it would have been
And like,
very easy for them to like have like the bridge open, but then stop him before he can actually reach it, or stop him before the
Yeah.
bridge even fully opens. But he technically got to where he wanted to be.
Yep.
Josh, what would you wish for if you met eternity?
Oh, God, $1 trillion, probably. That would just solve all my life problems. But let me tell you, before eternity, I just want to give a quick shout out to the moments leading up to eternity. Specifically, the biggest laugh I had in the theater was when the statue of the head falls on the children, and it's made to look like it just crushed them kids.
Oh yeah.
When this movie comes out digitally, I kind of want to just end the movie there and like cut out the kids from that point on, as if the statue had just killed them all, just fucking landed on those kids. That was my biggest laugh, and then of course it cuts to Thor holding it up and him like empowering the kids with his powers.
Just for
For
a
like,
moment,
time.
he repeats
just
this.
for a brief moment.
He
Yeah.
repeats the spell his dad gave, but said, um, "Give them just for a moment the power of Thor." And the fucking kid using the stuffed bunny, or then
Yeah.
what was one
absolutely.
girl using, like a jump rope or like a toy wand to just like rip
Yeah.
this dude in half, like
All
badass.
that stuff
And it's set
with
to
the music.
November rain.
Rain,
Come
absolutely. The
on.
music, all that was like incredible, and then yeah, it's leading up to Natalie Portman showing up during that fight, and again like the despair on Thor's face, just knowing like this is it for her, and then like that constant struggle of like trying to break the sword, but call Mjolnir. I loved all that, and then yeah, when he walks through to eternity, like and you see him cross the white line, I was like, holy shit, he did it. And very similar, it had very similar vibes to like after they used the Soul Stone in Infinity
Oh
War,
yeah.
just because it's like literally just
Oh,
water.
see, I thought it
Uh,
looked like the final boss fight from Skyward Sword.
Yes.
I didn't even think about that. No, I was like, oh, this is just like where Thanos shows up and like little Gamora's like, what was like, was it
Ocarina
worth
of
it?
Time.
It's
with
actually
Shadow
the
Link.
other side of the same pond. It's just that the sun here hits differently, and that's why you don't see that little like Colosseum looking thing. It's like you've got
Right.
the Colosseum, you've got Eternity, and the shadows just hit differently. It's all the same water.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then I don't know, it's kind of weird that like Natalie Portman's like, hey, I know I'm gonna die. I'm gonna have this guy pawn his kid off on you, and you're gonna take care of this kid. You're gonna open your
Right.
heart and take care of the kid of a guy, like the kid of a murderer who tried to kill all the gods. You're gonna raise that
Also,
dude's
like,
child.
dude, if you're about to die, you could die and be with your kid if you believe in that sort of thing. I don't know what afterlife this
Yeah.
individual goes to, because I guess
He
all of them are
doesn't
valid
anymore.
in Marvel. So it's like you could have done that, and then I really thought that they were gonna use Eternity to wish her cancer away.
That's what
Had
I
that
was.
same thought.
That's my thought too. Yeah. Where I was like, he's gonna be like, "Ayo, can you bring back my kid, but also get rid of her cancer and just like have a like
Both
a
of those
conjoint wish."
for a thing where like it affects the entire universe, and only
Mhm.
one person can make a wish. I feel like both wishing for your kid to come back or wishing for your cancer to go away both seem really greedy in the grand scheme of things, because it's like only one person in the history of eternity can use this.
Mm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked the wish, and then him getting his like final moments with his daughter. That was like awesome. Plus, like yeah, like all the pale had just drained out of his skin, and he looked like very much like he did towards the beginning of the film. I thought it was all great.
It was a dope shot. When he makes the wish goes through, and then you just see it like it pans up, but then it actually is the bottom of the water, and you see the reflection
Yeah.
of the daughter, who's actually eternity, like in the
Yeah, it's
water.
like the daughter was born of eternity, which I was trying to read about this after just to see if like this character is
Mhm.
anything that has existed in the comics before, and it looks like it's not. Like in the comics, Gore has a kid, but it's actually a son, but the son is not like a kid of eternity, and Thor only has like some daughter that is biologically his in like some alternate universe thing, so it doesn't really count. So this character of, I guess we'll call her Love, based off that final narration, is something that is kind of completely original.
That's
So
cool.
I guess you could say that because it came from eternity, the kid's gonna have some level of immense power, and maybe this is gonna be like how they put an Asgardian on or an Asgardian like being on the Young Avengers.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you saw
yeah,
her use the little purple eye beams.
yeah.
Yeah, but then
Um,
I don't know where that came from. That's not Asgardian or anything.
That was from Eternity. Those are Eternity's power. Something from because she's a child of
Yeah,
Eternity. So
yeah.
yeah. To me, like, what do you guys think? Like, she remembered dying, right? Because
Oh, is she
like,
gonna be all fucked up? Is it gonna be like a Jason Todd situation where like if you don't put this kid in therapy, you have a sociopath on your hands?
but do you know what I'm talking about? Like when Gore is
yeah,
talking to his daughter, and and they like it is like it felt like she knew what happened, right? Like it
right.
wasn't like she's just a 5-year-old or whatever, and but she like
Mhm.
doesn't remember anything. Like
She's
she's
seen
like,
some shit, bro. That's what I say about Jason Todd
Mhm.
all the time. You've seen some shit when you get brought back to life, and I feel like people don't take those ramifications when they wish someone back.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the part that shocked me the most in this movie was the mid-credit scene where we saw one uh Brett Goldstein, aka Roy
Roy
Kent.
Kent,
Okay.
he's
Yep.
here, he's there, he's every fucking where. I started the show 3 days ago, guys.
Nice. Oh, perfect timing for you, dude.
Yes.
Technically, no, because I had heard the rumor that he was supposed to be playing Hercules, and I already knew who the actor was before I started watching Ted Lasso.
Mhm.
And I went, that is good casting because if you look at Hercules on the page of a comic book, you go that it's the same thing when you look at like Nick Fury or Pat or Professor Xavier. You're like, this just looks like that actor almost one for one.
Hmm.
But but then Leanne sent me a post where only me and her would have been hyped. Where I guess the main lead from the first season of Bridgerton was at the premiere, and she was like, "Holy fuck, is he in this movie?" I was like, "Oh my god, maybe he's playing Hercules." So I was kind of I wonder who's gonna play him. And the way I got
Mm.
it spoiled / confirmed that it was Brett Goldstein was that someone on my Twitter timeline went, "Hercules, he's here, he's there, he's every fucking where." And I was like, if I did not watch this show, uh, if I watched the
Ah.
show a week later, I would have no idea what the fuck this tweet means.
See, I was talking about it the other day. I was like, when's Ted Lasso season 3 coming out? And I was like, it feels
So
like
they,
it should come out around right about now. And seasons 1 and 2 came out in like July and August, but three's not coming out till like November or
yeah,
something. So
but they're at the very tail end of filming, and so I don't think any commitment for Hercules would have affected this because that was like a 3 second scene. They shot that in less than a day,
yeah,
and by the time we see him come back, like I don't think there's going to be any s- co- schedule scheduling
yeah.
issue between him having to play Hercules and Thor
That
5 or whatever.
that's a discussion of like that we were talking about earlier, I think off camera, of like where the MCU is going, like, Thor 5 or whatever, it could be years down the line when and Hercules shows back up. But
Right.
um Josh, did this make you want to rewatch classic Disney animated feature Hercules?
Not gonna lie, I kind of did. Kind of did because I haven't seen Ted Lasso. I have no connection to Roy Kent. So seeing this character, I was like, oh, cool. That's Hercules. But because it's Taika, I accidentally put this in the Discord last night, and I don't think I marked it as a spoiler, and so I immediately deleted it after Alec and Rebel saw it. But I also have this drafted as a tweet. I hope he comes back in Thor 5, and I hope Thor 5 is directed by Taika, and I hope Korg just accidentally just lands a ship on him, kills him in 2 seconds. He's like, Thor, I have come to rain revenge on you for what you've done to the gods and your treachery against Zeus, and Korg just lands a ship on him. Him and his sexy Dwayne come out, and they go, oh, hey, guys. And it's just a joke, and we're just on to some bigger baddie other than
See,
fucking Hercules.
I disagree because Hercules is basically like the Thor of the Greek god pantheon,
Not only
right?
that is
Mhm.
in the comics, they're actually best friends. Like they're adversaries at first, but it
Yeah.
very quickly becomes a thing where they become best friends. And I thought that this was gonna, when I found out that we were gonna see Zeus in this movie, I thought maybe we would see Hercules halfway through, and there'd be something about like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
they were childhood friends, but they haven't seen each other in like several thousand years or something.
yeah.
Um, so this is more interesting, where it's like, oh, they might not actually know each other, and so we actually get to see that go from conflict to friends.
Mhm. Which
Like,
they could do in the next, story where they give you a flashback or something like that.
Yeah.
right. It's just like
Mhm.
if this was Corey Barlog directing it, I'd be like, damn, he's going to be the big baddie of the next movie. But because it's Taika, I'm like, this is just a
See,
fun
I
cameo that we can like strip away from people in 20 seconds in Thor 5 and get
yeah,
on to something bigger and
I don't
better.
think Taika directs the next Thor movie.
The next Thor.
I think
He
because
should.
like just my hunch, just because
Mhm.
this one didn't get as good of a critical review as Ragnarok. Like it's, and I'm
Right.
not bringing this up to be funny, but it's like really close to the Dark World's like Rotten Tomato score and
Oh,
everything like that.
jeez.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
couple percent off. Which
68%.
and I know I joke about the movie. I think this is way better than that, but like
Mhm.
it's interesting that like that's just the general consensus right now with that. And so I and Taika's doing like a billion things right now. He's going to do a Star Wars movie. He's doing so
Oh
many
yeah.
TV
He's
shows.
doing the vampire movie, the pirate, or the vampire show, and the pirate show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like he just, you know,
Spread a
he
little
could be in
thin.
Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, cause like just the rollout of the past couple Thor movies, like it's like always like 4 to 5 years before we even get one. So I was like,
I was
he could do
I
some more
was
Star Wars projects and then come
That's
back
the
in
other
5 years
thing
time.
that
Mhm.
I was thinking of, where like I think one of the issues with the MCU getting bigger is that it takes so long for things to come back. Like I mean, these two comparisons are tough because you consider the fact that the pandemic put a dent in the MCU's order stuff, but like s- the entire Spider-Man trilogy came out between the two Doctor Strange movies, and the second one didn't even touch on like
Almost
what
between
but
the
the
two
first
Thor
credit scene
movies.
of the first one, which was about Mordo losing faith in the sorcerers and wanting to take people's magic away. And now with Thor, it's like trying to think back to 2019 when Endgame came out, and it's like, okay, he was with the Asgardians. He was depressed because of how he felt that Thanos won because of what he did. And on top of that, we forget how tragic of a character he is because he's dealt with a lot of loss. And all that. And then it's like, hey, is he ever going to be reunited with Loki now that Loki's jumping around space time? And so that's what I meant when I said the movie had a lot to touch on. When slash what is Thor 5? When do we see
So
Thor next? And so like, is Hercules going to matter, or are we going to care by the time it's his turn? And that's kind of one of the reasons why, going back to something I said earlier, like seeing something with Khonshu or the Egyptian gods, again, not even fully seeing Moon Knight join in on this like team he was building, but just like discussing the Egyptian gods as a way to remind people that like the MCU is bigger, things are happening, but like the next time we see Moon Knight isn't in 2025 and we forgot everything that happened.
yeah, I after like seeing the end credit with Jane in Valhalla, I was like, is could Loki be in Valhalla, like that version of Loki, right? Or even in
Interesting.
this multiverse, could he pull that same stunt that classic Loki did in the show, where he's just hiding away? Could be. I mean, they
Mhm.
could bring him back, but I don't think they'll do that just because the Loki show has its own lane going down. Um,
Right.
but yeah, so one of the like final question, um, Alec, yeah, where do you see the story going forward, or what would you hope to see with Thor, Hercules, Zeus, uh, Guardians, all that stuff?
That's a tough one, just because I think we can't necessarily fully answer that until we see what happens with Guardians 3. Um, and kind of like where they end up. But I think they leave Thor, going kind of traveling, just helping in all these fights, helping all these people in need, with Gore's daughter, and I'm assuming at some point they'll be probably helping out in some fight, and then you just see Hercules, come there, and then that's basically it's almost them running. It's almost like a chase movie at that point. Just Hercules and they're chasing down Thor, trying to get him to answer for what he did over in Omnipotent City.
Yeah, Josh, are you wanting to see more Thor stories going forward?
Yes, I would be hesitant to give it back to someone. Like, although I think this is a pretty mid Marvel movie, and I think it's like one of Taika's like lower movies. Like it's a pretty weak Taika movie. I still think he's done more for the Thor character than anyone else in the MCU, and so that's why I like him to come back and it just be like a Thor. Here's the Taika trilogy, before picking back up with a new director or someone else. But I think next time we see Thor, I mean, this is a couple weeks out from San Diego Comic-Con, in which we're going to get a big MCU panel. Um, Lots of juicy news. So I think we'll see Thor in a different team up movie that's not Guardians, but maybe quote unquote the new Avengers. I think he's just great for just popping in and plugging in movies wherever you need him, whether it be Infinity
Yeah.
War, um, Endgame, stuff like that, and playing a crucial role there. So I think like New Avengers is where I'd like to see him next before coming back to Thor 5. I think we can just, pick another couple years off with Thor. Just let him have just fun adventures with the kid. And even if you just did like holiday specials or just one-off Disney Plus things where it's like here's an adventure of Thor and his daughter, I think that would be like pretty cool as opposed to like a full another 2-hour movie. But yeah, that's just where I'm at with him.
Okay. Jordan, when you saw Thor will return at the end of the credits, did that make you smile or did you frown?
Neither. I think my face just kind of stayed exactly the same, and I'm like thinking about it even right now is like, when is the most logical point to see him next? And what should he be doing? When I said that the ending killed a lot of the movie for me, I also think it was a little weird to just be like, Thor's now a stay-at-home dad with this kid of eternity that calls him a demon and shoots lasers at him. Like, not saying that that degrades his character, but I feel like that doesn't bring him to the point where he's moved on. It just makes it look like, oh, he found this and like he's retired in his little shack now. Um, and I don't even really know where the next logical place to see him is. I know that like they've been saying like you're gonna get the full picture as to where the MCU's next arc is going soon. I feel like we all know it has something to do with the multiverse, but I do still think that there is like this corner of the MCU that is building up another big plot that isn't connected to that. Like when you consider Valentina and the Thunderbolt slash Dark Avengers, and like, so it brings the question of like, how does Thor connect to anything going on with the multiverse? Because he's also now not connected to that other part of like stuff we saw from like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like now it almost seems like the MCU split into three, and it's like a big plot, something that is building up and maybe isn't as big as the multiversal thing, and Thor's still around if we ever need or want him. And I go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna say I think his connection to the multiverse stuff was through Loki. So I think like
I guess that
we
makes
got to
sense.
see
Like if
those two
Loki comes
reunited
back,
one
but it's
time.
like, okay, we find out that Loki has something to do with the multiverse. Someone gonna be like, oh, quickly call Thor, let him know. Like, I don't know. I just feel like they technically could have ended Thor's character here, and I think this makes sense. But they're saying he'll return, and I just want there to be like a good reason to. Hopefully, like Josh is saying, with San Diego Comic-Con, we'll get a little better idea of like where this picture's heading, and if like this next big arc of the MCU is going to find a way to incorporate everyone, or if it's only going to incorporate those that were affected by multiversal stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like
Um,
Quantum Mania will be the big one that like answers a lot of these questions.
Yeah, because we know like Kang's the next big bad and stuff, but like, how do people like Thor or Captain America interact with Kang, other than the fact that they're like, hey, this is going to need an army, we need you again, and we get like another Endgame moment where every member who's ever existed just shows up.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anybody want to bring up anything before I close out
Ooh.
the podcast? Yeah, go ahead, Alec.
Yes, so that last post-credit scene, we see Jane going to Valhalla. So that got me thinking. We've seen a lot of afterlife, like realms, dimensions, whatever you want to call them, in the MCU. We've seen, the Wakandan one, ancestral plane, I think is what they call it. We've seen the Egyptian one. We've seen Valhalla. Like,
Now, is the ancestral plane the full-on afterlife for all Wakandans, or is that just for the people who were king?
I would assume all of
I think
Wakanda.
yeah. Same,
I
yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's like, maybe that tree is like, the penthouse section, and then, the regular people
Right.
are like,
Everybody else gets a shrub.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, something like that maybe.
But
Yeah.
I'm thinking that that's got to be leading to something. I don't know. This was a thought I had. Like, I don't know. I don't know
No,
if I
you're
can really
right.
flesh it out, but I feel like it's got to be leading to something.
Yeah, they've definitely brought
Maybe.
up and mentioned many different afterlives in the last couple of
Yeah.
years.
We know that, like, again, going back, like, we know the big arc has to do with the multiverse, but these planes aren't different universes. They're dimensions, which exist within
Mhm.
our universe, but maybe accessing them is still like maybe there's like a similarity yet difference between a plane and a separate universe, and maybe it all starts to crumble.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Like, if this is, let's say, plain Earth, and within that you have this dimension, and then there's this wall of science, and then you get a different universe. Maybe there's just a weaker version of that wall for dimensions.
Right.
So when
Huh.
one starts
Almost
to
like in
break,
Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
I'm 2 episodes
Uh,
behind on that. So
I haven't even started it. For me, I think it's just like I think it's more just for the personal character stories that they're telling within the MCU.
Mhm.
It just happens to be coincidence that like a lot of
Okay.
characters do
Yeah.
have an Astra like l- place beyond um
Mhm.
normal life, like for T'Challa to be able to access that in Black Panther, and I think we'll get more of that ancestral plane in Wakanda Forever, given a lot of the that. So, and plus, then there's still with Valhalla, I think there's still a way to like have some meaningful Jane, Odin, and what can I think?
Heimdall.
Idris
Heimdall.
Heimdall connection back, and so I think it's just more of a place to store characters when you can't sign a 7 movie contract, but then you can be like, hey, do you have a free
Right.
weekend? You're
Oh, I
you're in
also want
the
to.
afterlife.
Yeah, I want to shout out the guy behind me who, when Idris Elba showed up, went, "Holy shit, it's Knuckles!"
Nice.
That's great.
That's hilarious.
Sonic fans are menaces, dude.
Oh, Sonic 2 higher RT score than this movie. Crazy. A plus cinema
Damn,
score too, dude. Sonic 2.
Nice.
Um,
damn.
Jordan, Josh, anything you guys want to talk about related to this movie?
I don't know, really. It's fine. Yeah,
Um,
End credits
maybe
were
shouldn't have come out.
amazing.
End credits amazing. Maybe shouldn't have come out the same night as the season 3 finale of The Boys. Just because like you
mm,
talk about personal stakes for superheroes, like that show just does all this stuff just so much better. So then like yeah, my entire day I was just more hyped for The Boys because God, what a season for
Jane
that
and
show. Watch the
yeah,
spoiler cast for that.
my my last thought is that Jane and Valkyrie should have kissed.
yeah, they
Yes,
teased that
absolutely.
too. They teased that they
Yeah,
a little
Team
bit, but
Jane.
yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was funny. Um, so let's rate the movie. How many dark elf cursed grenades out of 10 would you rate this movie, Josh?
Like a 7.5. Like it's good,
7.
not great. Yeah,
Okay.
7,
Jordan?
7.
uh, so you mean the actual hand grenades, or the hand grenades that look like a speaker, or the speaker that looks like a
The
hand grenade?
the
Yeah.
grenades that like were like the gravity that like sucked up
Okay, so you're talking
the
about the real ones. Okay,
yeah.
I mean technically those are bad, right?
Yeah, but like, 1 out of 10, how many cursed dark
Yeah.
elf grenades would you rate this movie?
I'm gonna say a 5. I think it's a perfectly fine movie that I just don't like a lot of choices they make.
Yeah. Okay. Alec,
I'm giving this a solid 8.
8. Okay. I would give this 7. I'd probably give this 7 too. It's good, not great. It has some cool stuff in it, but yeah, at this point I mean, how many MCU movies are we in now? Anybody know off the top of our
On
head?
Over 30 for sure.
Movie? I think we're at like
Oh,
20 something.
yeah,
26,
I
27.
almost 30.
I w- I want to say anywhere between 20. I want to say around 28. One of
Infinity
these
War was what, the
29th.
20
This is
the
29th. This is the 29th.
29th.
Oh, so Black
I was
Panther is
close.
going to
I
be
was
the
close.
Black Panther
Yeah.
Wakanda Forever will be the 30th MCU movie.
Yeah,
Great movie to rein it all in.
yeah, this being the
Yeah.
29th movie and I give it a 7. Yeah, it's probably like in the 14, 15 range. Like it's right in the middle. And
Yeah.
then yeah, last question, then we'll close it. Uh, Stormbreaker or Mjolnir? Josh,
Stormbreaker, 100%.
Jordan.
Uh, I think I'm gonna go Mjolnir.
Okay, Alec.
I'm also going Mjolnir because those AoE attacks, and I'm just thinking like if they ever made a game, like imagine the DualSense when all those pieces come flying together.
Oh, Marvel's Avengers,
Oh.
give us Broken Mjolnir. You gave us mighty Thor. You should have given her Broken Mjolnir.
Like
They might do that with the skin if they drop a skin for her. But
No, but I mean, if they could have, like, I haven't played her yet because I've been on vacation, but I feel like that would have been an interesting way to like make the characters play differently.
yeah. So practicality standpoint, I'd pick Stormbreaker just because you got the Bifrost on the go. It's super clutch. But man, if we get
Frost.
if I could get the Reforged Mjolnir, where it splits up and flies everywhere, almost like 8 billion Yondu darts, like that was pretty dope.
Right?
See, it's like
Um,
the question is like, do you want to have the Bifrost, or do you want to have the ability that nobody can pick it up except you? This also,
that's
oh, sorry. While you think of that, this also brings up a point that I wish they would have resolved, where like they did that weird thing with like Thor liking one weapon over the other and the weapon getting jealous. It was weird, but I did like them kind of
I laugh.
proving that the
Yeah.
weapons have some level of what do you call it? My mind's
Sentience?
blanking on the word. Yeah,
Sentience?
sentience. And I don't know how they could have done this. I think, don't make the hammer talk, but like do something scientific where you could find out that like it was him talking to Mjolnir that made this happen.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a very impactful moment.
I mean,
rather
you
than
see
just
that
keep
though.
Yeah, you see that.
Thor
You-
never finds out, is what I'm saying. We see as the audience, Thor talks to Mjolnir.
Yeah,
and the
but he
narration-
learns
Oh.
but he learns when he's talking to the kids and he's like, give them powers temporarily. Like, he didn't make the unconditional like
No, but I don't think he ever realizes that the reason Mjolnir called out to Jane and was keeping her alive. Well, I mean, I guess technically every time she used it, she got weaker. But it was that weird thing where he was upset. But I think it would have been a very impactful moment for him to be like, him to have straight up found out that him telling Mjolnir to take care of Jane is what allowed this to happen.
yeah.
All I'm gonna say is one got destroyed, and that like just absolutely just crushed, and one cut off the head of Thanos. So L plus ratio.
Yeah.
That's my final argument on why
All right.
Stormbreaker's better.
All right. So on that note, thanks everybody for watching and or listening to this podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, like it, share it with a friend. If you hated this episode, just tell somebody else how much you hated it and they got to listen because it's so, if they're indifferent, share it to someone else because they might like it. You never know. But welcome in everybody. And yeah, we'll see you probably for what? Black Panther?
Marvel.
This
Yeah.
Marvel finale.
Oh yeah. Miss Marvel finale, next MCU show or
She-Hulk.
like project She-Hulk, but like the next movie is going to be Black
Wakanda
Panther.
forever,
That's
supposedly.
a long,
Oh yeah.
a long
I'll
ways
believe it
away.
when I see it. Yep.
And to close that out, let's end this here and now.